You ever try to do the right thing only to get punished for it? It's a really painful, confusing feeling. Today, we're going to dive deep into that exact dynamic. We'll explore why good intentions can totally backfire in groups, whether it's our families or our workplaces. And our guide for this journey is a fascinating source called Karmic Intelligence. So let's just start with a question that might hit a little too close to home. Have you ever been in a situation where you see a disaster coming, right? You try to warn people, sound the alarm, and then suddenly you're the problem. All of a sudden you're the buzzkill, the naysayer, the one causing trouble. It makes no sense, but as we're about to see, it's a very predictable pattern.
Okay, let's get into the diagnosis. The source we're looking at argues that this isn't really about a few difficult people here and there. No, it's about a group condition, a kind of systemic sickness that it calls indulgence.
So what on earth is collective indulgence? Well, think of it like a group addiction to comfort. It's when a whole group consistently picks the easy, comfortable path right now, even if it leads to a total train wreck later. And in an environment like that, any call for accountability, any hint of responsibility, isn't just unwelcome. It feels like a direct personal attack.
This comparison really lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you've got a healthy system. It values looking ahead, it actually welcomes accountability, and it sees a little restraint as a good thing, a safeguard. But on the other side, you have the indulgent system. It just craves comfort, it runs from responsibility, and it sees that exact same restraint as a huge threat.
So what happens when someone actually tries to introduce that restraint? Well, this is where the fireworks start. This is the trigger. The source points to a specific principle that acts as this interrupting force, and it's a principle that's very often misunderstood.
Now, this is a really key point, so lean in. The source calls this the feminine principle, but let's be absolutely crystal clear. This has nothing to do with gender, at all. It's about a role anyone can play. It's a force for stability, for thinking about the long term, for being aware of consequences. You can almost think of it as the system's conscience.
So how does this conscience set off such a hostile reaction? Well, it's by doing the four things you see right here. Naming truths nobody wants to hear, trying to set limits on a runaway train, questioning bad habits that have become normal, or, and this is a big one, simply refusing to silently go along with it all. To an indulgent system, this isn't seen as care. It's seen as a declaration of war. All right, I know this might still feel a little bit abstract. So let's bring it down to earth with some real-world examples. The source gives us a couple of case studies that show exactly how these indulgent systems punish the very people who are just trying to keep things from falling apart.
And first up, we're going with the most personal one, the family. Because this is where these dynamics can get really, really painful and deeply entrenched.
In a family, this indulgence can look like a lot of things. Maybe it's chronic overspending, just racking up debt. Or maybe it's unchecked emotional drama, or this deep, deep sense of entitlement. These aren't just quirks. They become the family's default operating system.
So what happens when one person tries to pump the brakes? When they say, hey, maybe we should save some money, or, we need to handle our anger better. Bam, the system's defenses just kick right in. That person is immediately labeled as negative. Their foresight is called disrespectful, and asking for accountability, that gets twisted into breaking family unity. The family actually bonds over its shared denial.
Okay, now let's take this same pattern and plug it into a professional setting. The mechanics are exactly the same. They just have different, more corporate-sounding labels.
In a toxic workplace, indulgence isn't about being lazy. Quite the opposite. It's a culture of burnout that's disguised as ambition. It's a place where ethical shortcuts are just how we get things done. It's where exploitation gets rebranded and normalized as our company culture. And you know what happens next. An employee tries to set a healthy boundary, like not working all weekend. They're suddenly an obstruction. They question a shady ethical call. They're not a team player. They raise a legitimate concern. They're being emotionally disruptive. The whole organization basically sacrifices its own long-term health just to protect its harmful short-term momentum.
So, the system has successfully labeled the person speaking up as the problem. But it doesn't just stop there. As the decline gets worse, the system's main defense mechanism gets even nastier. It escalates into something far more toxic.
To really get a handle on this escalation, our source turns to the ancient wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. It brings up this concept of tamasic action, and what that means is action that is born from delusion, action that is completely blind to the damage and the harm it's causing. This is the really dangerous state that the indulgent group has now entered.
This slide shows how that delusion poisons everything, not just actions, but words too. Look at the steps. It starts with excess, which leads to loss. Then, the group refuses to take any responsibility for that loss. Next, they project all the blame onto the person who saw it coming all along. And then, finally, speech itself becomes a weapon. It's used to attack the messenger, because that person's very existence is a living, breathing reminder that the whole mess was a choice, not just bad luck.
So if you're the person stuck in this position, it can feel absolutely hopeless. But the source gives us a really powerful way to shift our perspective. It's not about winning the fight. It's about understanding your true role, or what it calls your dharma.
And the Gita has some powerful guidance here. It says your ultimate responsibility is to your own integrity. You can't control the choices the group makes, right? But you can control whether or not you go down with them.
And this right here, this is the core lesson. For the person who's interrupting the indulgence, the real victory isn't changing the group's mind. It's just holding on to your own clarity, your own values, even if it means you lose their acceptance. Because being aligned with what's true is so much more important than being accepted by a delusion.
Wow, this quote just powerfully reframes the entire situation, doesn't it? The group can point fingers and assign blame all day long, but karmically, it's completely irrelevant. The only thing that actually matters, the only thing that gets recorded, is who took responsibility and who ran from it. It shifts everything from social games to deep personal accountability.
So, we'll end with this question for you to take with you. When you look at the groups in your own life, your family, your job, your friendships, how is that voice of restraint treated? Is it seen as a valuable safeguard, something to protect you? Or is it treated like a target, an inconvenient threat that needs to be silenced? The answer to that question? Well, it reveals a whole lot more than you might think.